Here. Hi, Todd Smith here again, CEO of 360 Converge. I'm here today with Joel Bassam from Eastern Automotive Group. You are, I guess, the official marketing director. Is that your official title?
Sure, that's the official title. But like
That's
a
the
lot of
official
people,
title.
I think titles are almost irrelevant at these
Yeah,
times
I
like
feel
these.
you do a lot more than just the marketing there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's usually what I'm always like, well, you have an official title, but what do you really do? So,
Right.
well, cool. Hey, Joel, I really appreciate you taking time today. It's kind of been obviously a very interesting time in business. And I've been trying to record some of the conversations I have with people to give other people insight on what people are doing from their own perspectives, kind of share ideas. So what I'd like to do is kind of, I'll set you up for an easy one here. March 15th, so halfway through last month, what were you doing? And what has happened, for you and at Eastern since then? So kind of give you the big, softball hit there.
Yeah. I mean, and just as background, we're a completely independent company, completely independent used car sales.
Right.
So no OEM requirements. But yeah, we had our best weekend in recorded history the first weekend of March, and then started to see that kind of start to dip. And so we were at that, ready to go. 5 weekends in March, tax money's coming. We had more inventory than we had ever had in our history. We've always practiced on stocking up in the winter. I'm kind of jokingly saying we're fattening up in the winter, and getting ready. And our recon facility was cranking out 250 cars a week, getting ready to sell. And then this thing hit, and we have just been, trying to reel back and adjust to the demand that we're seeing in the market right now.
Okay. So as you're adjusting, walk me through, I mean, you guys have a well-established BDC with Tim and everybody at that team. You already have that running. What has changed in that environment? Have you gone more digital, or where is it coming from now? What's going on there? So.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we were already fully capable of selling cars online, and we had been practicing that with in-store pickup. We had always looked at the digital retailing experience as a way of helping customers save time in the store and creating a better experience. And that was always reflected by a really high net promoter score.
Yeah.
And similar to Todd that I know you had spoken with before, we use Roadster, and we're big fans of their platform. And so what's really changed in the last week is we've expanded those offerings to include home delivery and home test drives. Full transparency, we haven't seen a lot of demand, even though we're offering it, and the circumstances that are out there, we're still not seeing demand for it. Customers want to leverage the tools that we're offering to save time in the store, and we're practicing on the proper hygiene and CDC guidelines to make sure it's a safe environment for the customers and our employees. But the biggest change we've seen, besides just a massive decrease in demand and leads and website traffic, call traffic, everything you can possibly think of, is the ratio of lead to what Roadster calls orders, which is the beginning of the process of selling a car online, is up 45% last time I checked. And so we're generating less leads, but a huge majority of them are now going through the digital retailing process. Where before that was maybe 10%, 20% of our deals. Now it's 50 to 60% of our deals have already almost bought the car online.
That's interesting. Do you feel as your BDC, I know they're working from home right now, are they still at the high level of engagement with those shoppers through the platform, or are you actually seeing shoppers more self-navigate now through the process?
Well, it's a mix of both. So we are seeing engagement. So like I mentioned before, our users on the website are down, but the engagement scores of those users and engagement per user on per VDP is up. And so you could argue that both ways. I would say there's no correlation necessarily, because you could say there's less looky-loos because people aren't in the market, and the people who are on the site, so that might be spiking those numbers. But our BDC we've adjusted our word track slightly to allow them to really push the digital retailing environment, as opposed to before it was more of a passive of, hey, we have this opportunity. I invite you to, go through our express experience, but we always prioritize the appointment. We would never block a customer. And then we'd get the appointment then start the messaging afterwards of saying, if you want to save time in the store, you can just buy this car from home. And then people would take that or leave it. Now it's more of, we're upfront customers saying, how do I spend less time in your store? Like, I want to buy a car because I'm in need. And really that's almost all the customers we're seeing right now. It's customers in need. Right. How do I minimize the time in the store? Like, oh, great, we have this tool already ready to go. Everyone's already trained on it. Everyone is familiar with it and loves it. We were treating those previously as what we called priority appointments. And, you know, I think another webinar I was talking about too is, you know, digital retailing used to just be the hottest leads. Now it's the way to go. So it's changed the perspective from the customers and the BDC agents.
That's interesting. So your reps now are just really pushing them right into it versus just having it as a channel. It's become the channel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've paused almost all of our traditional marketing. We've kept on a lot of our OTT and television networks with adjusted messaging that's really, you know, not salesy. It's, you know, we are here, we're going to get through this together. If you're in need, we have this online store. And if not, we'll see you when you're ready. That's really the messaging we're getting out there. I even just cut a 15-second commercial that's just purely thanking essential workers. It doesn't mention anything about Easterns and anything about buying. It just says, from the Easterns family, thank you for what you do. And I think that's the kind of tone and thing you need to go out there, because no one's in the market. When this thing started, I was joking about it before, because our immediate kind of me search that we were getting back from our stores is prime business is dried up. You know, everyone in those stores right now are subprime people in need. And, you know, the reality, yeah, of course, I mean, your 401k is taking a tank, you're in the market, those are prime customers. They were thinking about getting a Jag. They're going to wait now. I mean, they're not jumping at the opportunity to go buy it, you know, the nicer version. So they can wait. Right. And all the research shows that.
All right. So the people that are buying are coming through less output through the digital process, a lot of secondary type credit, I assume at this point. These are people that have to have cars, but you're finding the way and the path to make that available to them. Have you shifted any of your digital marketing to really try to fine tune into that area yet with messaging for that particular type of shopper? Or are you still just kind of keeping it broad right now online, or have you just pulled back the reins completely?
Well, a mix of all of those things. So we've always had a majority of a subprime business. You know, 5 years ago as a company, our core identity was Easterns were your jobs, your credit. And that's still our trademark slogan. And so that used to 100% of our business was subprime. I would say, you know, as we transitioned into becoming a more full spectrum dealership and being a pure one price model, we've had a more full, you know, spread of customers. It was probably 60-40, 60 being subprime, what most would consider subprime, and 40 being prime. The messaging that we've adjusted on the digital marketing now is you can buy if you need to, and we're targeting the subprime customers with the keywords that they're searching for. And all of the price and model specific marketing that we were doing, we've completely paused. Just because I don't think people are starting their searches or looking for those. And if they are, they're not worth the conversions right now. We're focusing on those need customers and making sure we're in front of them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you've shifted marketing. Obviously, your BDC is working from home. So how is that transition? And did you have to do anything special to accomplish that, or did you already have some of those tools in place, or how did that work?
Yeah, that actually was you know, a huge shout out to our BDC manager and our director of sales, Tim. He had this had started to kind of stir. You know, the reports and things like that. So he had begun the process of taking a couple agents a week and trying them at home, even though we had no reason to do so. There was no state order, just to see what it was like. And it was a really positive feedback. And we had already begun the process of integrating with a new phone routing system called Car Wars that integrates with VIN Solutions, is who we use for our CRM. Yep. That allows our users to mass outbound calls and not come from their cell phone. All that happened to happen right at the right time for us. And so we keep 1 or 2 agents at, you know, practice social distancing at the office at a time. And that's really more of just making sure that if something happens, they have somebody there. And then everyone else works from home. Our entire accounting staff works from home. Our inventory management staff works from home. Our tag and title department has one person that comes in to, you know, physically handle tags, and everyone else is working from home. And then unfortunately we've had to furlough our entire reconditioning staff, but that staff has actually been pretty seamless. That specifically the BDC staff has been seamless to work from home.
So, okay, walk me through now to sell cars. You still, the BDC will get them through the Roadster process. You still have to make, trade-ins. Obviously test drives are probably off the table right now, but still need to.
Well, we're offering it, but people don't want it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So for trades, are you just using Roadster's process, or did you guys already have your own, or?
Yeah, so we had already been using the Roadster process for all digital trade-ins, and then when they arrived at the store, we were verifying those numbers using Appraisal Lane.
Right.
And so the only thing that's changed now is that those numbers aren't getting confirmed in store, or aren't getting confirmed unless the person's coming to buy a car physically in store. But the Roadster process is really great. I know Todd had talked about on the previous call, but the amount of questions they ask, the amount of detail you get, and that goes right to our wholesaler's cell phone number, and they can immediately create a conversation back and forth. We had already fully integrated with that process. So effectively all of the people who had gone through those multi-step process in the Roadster deal building was already receiving a real number in their trade, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah, how are you feeling about those numbers that are getting put on them right now? Todd and I had a deep talk about that because it's like the auction. There's no marketplace, so it's really hard to tell what stuff's worth. And are you taking a super conservative approach? Are you just trying to stick with what the book was, or you don't want to get caught with the water later. And
true.
I don't know.
I mean, I think that depends on your perspective on wholesale. We've always taken the perspective, because we don't sell cars off the street. Our customers' vehicles that we trade in are an avenue to a sale. We've never looked at it as a profit center, and 1%, maybe 2% of those cars are going to be up to our standards of, on an average, our cars are 2 years old and less 30,000 miles. A lot of those cars aren't getting traded in. Right. And so it's always been put that number in the right place. And honestly, if push comes to shove and you've got a deal on the table and you need 1,000 more on a trade, we'll just step up and pay it, even if that means that we're going to have a net zero outcome at the market later. But yeah, the reality is we're offering less for trades because that's what the market is. It's going to get worse before it gets better. MMR has that natural built delay in it. And so we're going to see what the books continue to do. I mean, NADA is going to, I don't know what's it going to do in May. I mean, those values have got to drop, and it's going to be dramatic, which will help the dealers somewhat, but there's no demand. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. So what else have, obviously you're talking to people too all the time. Any good insights or ideas you've heard out there so far, or?
I don't know. It's everyone has their own way of kind of peeling this thing back and what their states are allowing or aren't allowing. We're in the position right now where we're just so caught up with trying to download what the DOJ is coming out with, their updated guidance of what you can and can't do for the PVP, and what that means for us, and how we're going to make that actually a practical business case, as opposed to a blank check we're sending to our customers for our employees for not working. Which isn't our intention. We want to have work for them. The reality for us is going to be that a lot of that work is going to be proactive training for the future, so that when the lights get turned back on, we'll come out of this actually better than we were before. And that's easy to apply to sales staff and sales management staff, but it gets a little trickier when you've got a reconditioning and body shop staff of 75 people. I mean, that's a little bit more difficult of a field to send people to work or send people to school digitally in a time like this. So I've been so tied up in that. It's just trying to figure out the best way to get the most forgiven and the most amount of money, and then apply it in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. There was a study done by Harvard after the recession of 2008, and the companies that just shrunk up, fired people, versus the companies that furloughed or reduced pay but kept them on. Actually came out of it at it was like a 10-fold rate their success, their comeback was so much faster and became much more profitable. And I think there's a lesson there that we could probably all learn, that this pause button might be a good opportunity to really train our people, invest in them personally, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't do their normal job. So let's give them a job of becoming smarter, more efficient, better process, etc. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if you don't think I shamelessly screenshot what you posted on LinkedIn about coming out of this thing trained and sent that to my entire staff, you're crazy. But yeah, it's we already had a big training kind of mindset when it came to our staff anyway. We cross train like crazy. We bring out VIN solutions trainers regularly. We bring out roadster trainers regularly. We retrain and cross train all the time. So that's already been a part of our culture, and now it's just figuring out how to facilitate that in an environment in which we're not going to be physically in the same space. Because even if we wanted to, forget all the realities of forgiveness amounts and all the accounting stuff you have to do it. If we had a blank check from the government and said you can pay everyone, period, which that isn't how the VBP is really worded. But if that was the case, we couldn't have our full staff come back because we wouldn't be able to practice proper social distancing and proper hygiene, and we wouldn't have the work for them, and that would be a bad thing. Right. And so we'd still need to figure out a way of getting them on rotating schedules, so we wouldn't have too many salespeople on the floor that put the health of our employees at risk and our customers as well. And just trying to find out the right avenues of that. Luckily, we had, again, this is another lucky thing, we had just brought on a corporate trainer, someone who had worked in a collegiate field doing management classes. We hired him full time and gave him a director of brand standards title. And again, we hired him March 1st. I mean, timing of that couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
But yeah, he knows how to do this stuff, and he's put together digital platforms, and he's ready to launch in the second that we can hire people. We've had enough demand that we started this entire process, March 15th with 306 employees. We made the decision to terminate 30 of those employees because they were brought on as effectively seasonal hires for the uptick in tax season. Employees that were kind of meant to be on a trial period, and if they were great, they were great. And if they didn't cut it, then that's okay. They were kind of brought on for our version of Christmas at a Christmas tree lot, or you know what I mean? And then after that, we, slowly began the process of furloughing chunks of employees. Where we've landed now is we furloughed 96 employees, and we've been able to keep 175 of those employees at some version of full pay. Potentially their hours have been slightly cut. Our entire management team took a massive pay cut just, because we should. Yeah. But out of that, we've been able to keep enough people intact, to your point, to come out of this better. And that's really what we're looking forward to. Is we believe that we're going to be ready for this when the lights come on. We're going to be able to really come out of the gates hard. We had been planning for some version of an economic downturn for years. We had always had that in the back of our mind. Every manager meeting we had monthly was, hey, I believe there's going to be an economic downturn. Don't overextend yourself personally. Make sure you're ready to go. And, as a company, we're practicing something. We turned down opportunities because we felt that we didn't want to overextend ourselves because we believed something was coming. Nothing like this, obviously, but we believed something was coming, not this. But so we had enough cash, and Todd mentioned that liquidity is the biggest issue for everybody right now.
Yeah.
And so we had planned for that a little bit. So we're ready to go. But we're still trying to collect data as it's happening. And unfortunately, that's hourly now.
Yeah. So what do you look at? Like, what's your dashboard look like? I mean, obviously, I assume Google Analytics, you mentioned web traffic. Yeah. You're looking at Roadster data. That's people going through that process. I assume you're got your spend cranked pretty down on like Facebook ads. Yeah. And what do you use? What's your dash look like?
Yeah, so I have my own VIN Solutions lets you build your own custom dashboard. So that I check on every day, and that's just constant lead flow traffic and conversion traffic metrics based on where those leads are actually coming from. But that's somewhat unreliable. I had hired an outside company called Measure Marketing and built me a fantastic data studio set, Google Data Studio, that pulls all my analytics in and does daily, weekly, and monthly KPIs based on what I had chosen for those. And then breaks down all of the unique engagement scores and engagement metrics per vehicle detail page, per user, or in total, and then per make and per model and stuff like that. So I can track down to a pretty granular level what's getting engagement on the site and then react in real time. And so checking that almost daily is constant for me. Reviewing the platforms that we have out there, making sure the messaging is clear. I spent the last week making sure that all of our COVID-19 update pages are active and have more resources, not only for our customers, but for our employees as well, to get access to, of like simple things like ADP guidelines on how to make your own cloth masks. That's publicly available on our site. Just things like that, I think, are more proactive than anything else. And then this last couple of days has been translating all that into Spanish and making sure that those pages are up to date and stuff like that. So, and then tomorrow, I'm sure there's going to be a new guideline that comes out. They're going to have to update it all day. So you can only be so proactive in a time in which you have to react to something every hour.
Yeah. So have you scheduled like deliveries? Are you just doing it every day, or are you blocking days for deliveries? How's that working for cars?
We have had mixed emotions about deliveries. We were lucky enough to be part of a beta test with cars.com and part of a beta test with AutoTrader to do. AutoTrader called it a market extension program. Cars.com didn't really have a name for it, and where they were, allowing us to publicly offer our vehicles and other DMAs for a cost, just to see what the demand was. And we found such a lower percentage of customers clicking through on SRPs to VDPs and then actually taking action on those VDPs themselves, because we had no brand equity in those markets.
Right.
Companies like Carvana are constantly pumping traditional marketing in those markets, so they've built up some version of trust or familiarity. And we didn't see any demand. I mean, push came to shove, and we talked to the customer. They said, "I'll just come pick it up. It's fine." Because I still think that there's a huge chunk of customers, even in a pandemic like this, that they say, "I'd rather just come and make sure that everything's legitimate there." And see what that is. And that's not, that we're believers in this process. We want to be able to deliver cars. The customers simply just don't want it, or at least our customers don't right now.
Right.
And I was joking about this last night with our wife, because she was asking me about, have you had customers who want delivery? And I was saying, if you had to choose, like right now, like, would you rather have some stranger bring your groceries to the store? Or you're going to go to the grocery store. I think right now, having some rando show up at your house with your car, you might actually feel better about going to the facility and seeing what they're doing and how they're practicing their hygiene and what guidelines they're practicing, versus some stranger showing up at your house.
Yeah, I think
that might be a failure on my part for messaging. So
no, I think you're right. I mean, think about it. Like you have some strangers show up, you don't know them. How are you going to deal with them? Versus show up at the store, there's plastic on the seat, there's plastic on the steering wheel,
right.
The car smells like Clorox, right? Like,
right.
And
but we don't have
there,
automation's fancy equipment.
Yeah, the guy over is like, "Hey, your paperwork's 6 feet away. Just go work through it, sign it. I'm over here, shouting distance."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm really interested what will happen after. Like, is this a prolonged thing? Will social distancing play a real big impact? Will digital retailing, is it being forced into like the mechanism of the new reality? I don't know. I mean,
I think it's being forced. I think it's being forced specifically by OEMs. I think the problem, and I talk with Rudy from Roadster a lot, and he's a big believer in this, and they don't have champions saying that this is the way we want to do business because we believe in it. They're being forced by OEMs saying, get digital retailing on your site right now. And I don't think that that's a healthy or a long version of doing it. And then I also think digital retailing is like the car business version of AI. Like, everyone uses that term with no real concept of what that means or what it means to them. I think to a lot of people, digital retailing is a payment calculator on a BDP. And the reality is that might be digital retailing for some people, or their version of it. But the reason we went with Roadster, because we believed that it was truly digital retailing, because I could not only see someone penciling a deal, but I could then build in the trade equity. I could then send real numbers to them. I could adjust to a penny perfect tax number that's in a locality and send that back to them to get signed. Those little things that kind of software does is what I would consider digital retailing, because I can sell a car. I can desk a deal digitally without them being with me. And so I think that, they're getting, Cox just came out with a study today saying that it was a third of dealers and now it's half the dealers have digital retailing. But again, that definition is so vague.
Yeah, what's that really mean?
Means.
Yeah, I mean, digital retailing, like I always think, I think you're 100%. And I've learned that from Todd and other dealers. In the past, if you're not committed to it, it trickles through the whole organization. If you get a product because you think you have to have it versus you get it because you want it, because you see the true benefits of it, I think it's very different. So
Yeah.
that's that ownership, taking ownership of a tool like digital retailing, and you have to let it permeate the entire organization philosophically. It can't just be, hey, we have a digital retailing lane. And I think that's how almost everybody was like, this is our normal lane into our store. And yeah, we have a digital retailing lane over here, but that's a different lane. And I think that's a mistake. And I think it has to come into, there's only one way, right? To buy.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think it's the best thing about digital retailing is also the worst thing about digital retailing is, I think if you're going to want to do it, you have to want to be transparent with your customers. And I think that's something that would scare most dealers.
That scares us all, man. I mean, you're like transparency.
I mean, that's what we try. We try to do that the best we can. I mean, like I joke about this whenever I talk about digital retailing with anybody. I'm like, if you're scared to show them what your warranty costs is, like what your not warranty costs, what your warranty price is to the customer. If you're unwilling to discuss that, just don't even look into digital. Don't bother going into it. Like you're dead before this thing started. Right. Because that's one of the things that gets asked to us constantly, and even internally, we still discuss this a lot, is what's the reality of the loss of payment shock? Because when you got someone sitting in front of you and you're discussing really high interest rates, because like I said before, we're subprime interest, you can kind of explain to them, go over their credit report, explain to them why this is going to happen, how it's going to get better, and what the next steps are. But if you're just showing 20% interest rates and then they just say, I can't afford a car, I'm out of the market, like I'm done. Right. You know, that's a real cost that we can never calculate. But that's worth it for us. Like the reality of being transparent with our customers, I think long-term is going to build our brand in a better way than if we were hiding those numbers and showing them falsely low interest rates.
Right. And look, I agree 100% because name one company that's highly transparent that's not successful. Like
banking.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how there's a good one, right? So
yeah. I don't know. That's a good, I don't know. Yeah, you're right though.
I mean, almost if a business is truly transparent, you know, you're gonna be more successful. Like I always like Drift, those guys, David Cancel and all, which is you know, online bot kind of chat widget, and unbelievably transparent in everything they do. And I found that interesting. And that's maybe it's more of a SaaS mindset than a lot of other companies. And, you know, our industry is rooted in it's a 100+ year old industry, right? So it's a little challenging, but yeah, I think it's interesting. I love this stuff. I mean, I'm excited to see what comes out of this. I hope we create better experiences for customers, and I hope we leverage technology better, that we get more value out of these tools to create the better experiences for our customers as well as for the employees, that you just make it easier for them, that they don't have to feel like, I have to go to the desk and get pounded, go back to the customer, get pounded. Like, hey, here it is. I'm just the facilitator, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and if the industry gets better, it helps every single person in it. I mean, if the mindset of the customer towards our industry changes because of an experience that they had, even a competitor of yours, that benefits you. So I think everybody kind of going to this model is a good thing at the end of the day. But the concern is going to be what's the long-term ramifications of people being forced into something that they don't believe in. And you know, I think they'll figure it out. I think if there's some hesitation, this gets them over that beginning hump. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it comes down to training too. That top-down commitment, and then commitment to train forever.
Yeah, and understanding why you're doing it too. I mean, if the why right now is just because I need to sell a car because I need to sell a car, that's not a sustainable why.
Right. That's a good point, man. You're right on. So. Well, cool, man. I super appreciate getting to spend some time with you. It's always nice. And house to house, I got quarantined up in my like attic area with my Philadelphia Eagles vet stadium seats that I've been lugging around for 20 years since they knocked that thing down. I was like, I will keep them forever. And
is that the one Santa sat in?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I have a little package of batteries next to it that I can throw at people if they come near my attic. Yeah. And snowballs.
Love it.
Yeah. That's how us Philly fans are, man.
The jail in the basement. That's great.
Yep. I'll give you a very funny story about it. My dad told me, my dad helped build the vet stadium, hilariously. He told me a story. I still remember this. He said that, so, they put the jail in the bottom of that stadium, which was crazy in itself, but they had a magistrate or whatever there. And the first guy they brought in, like all beat up, drunk. And the judge is like, yeah, disorderly conduct, blah, blah, blah. He's like, how do you plead? And the guy literally vomits everywhere. And the judge is like, guilty, $20 or whatever it was, and like hauled him away. And I was like, how hilarious, like these stories.
Yeah. To be in the Sports Hall of Fame for Philadelphia, that's great.
Yeah, I know, man. That's how it works.
Yeah, I love it.
So, well, cool, man. Let's definitely keep up in touch. Love to, we have some other stuff to talk about later. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this. And, I want to keep watching your progress and see how you're working through it, because it's exciting.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. We're all in this together, and we're going to get through it as an industry. So.
Absolutely. So hold on one second.